Greetings and welcome to the Spiritual Awareness Journey program, a virtual spiritual talk platform where the practical application of all things spiritual in our daily living is shared and discussed by experienced speakers from all walks of life, with our special guests who are realized souls called Mahatmas. This hour is brought to you by the Manav Dharam YouTube channel. I am your host, Janvi Nanda, and we are very happy to welcome you from all around the world to spend this next hour with us as we address episode 10's topic, Science and Spirituality. As we know, energy is ever present, and we are all familiar with the Big Bang Theory, by which scientists say the creation started. A magnificent vibrational movement causing an explosion, bringing forth waves of sound, light, and heat, forming particles, manifesting the universe. This similar story we also learn about in the sacred Holy Scriptures, where that essence is referred to as the living word, the primordial vibration, the divine source, Param Brahma, Jehovah, and many more, from which this whole creation manifested. All the scriptures speak of that self-illuminating brilliant light, brighter than 1,000 suns. The question then is, how can we know? Can all humans experience this? Our speakers, Dr. J Prakash Agarwal and Miss Saisha Gupta, are excited to share with us their insights and understandings of this tremendous, huge mystery that both saints and scientists are intrigued by and invest all their focus and attention and energy on to find this out. As we also see, through these explorations, the society is changing and civilization is very much advancing, from tossing slinged rock to catch food, to then pushing buttons on our phones and our choices of food and meals are all delivered. But as humans, we are still lost in the pursuit of what the purpose of our life is. Maybe this is where the missing part is, where the spiritual aspect in our life. We heard that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, that our body is a temple, and that we are created in the likeness of the Creator. Is this true? Is there a possibility of knowing this? Here is where our special guest speaker, Mahatma Dhoni Baiji, can help us expounding on the spiritual aspect of us humans. It is only we, the spiritual beings embodied in this human temple, that have the ability to connect with the true essence, our original spiritual source. As humans, we can learn to meditate, and by receiving the spiritual knowledge, we can commune with that infinite, eternal, divine essence within, with the potential to experience our true self, our own light divine. And forging a relationship with our true self, we start our own practical spiritual awareness journey. And we, belonging to this one race, with the human race, through this conscious practice, knowing who we are, expanding in our spiritual potentials, journeying together as the one race, uniting as one, may attain our true goal, enlightenment, on a spiritual enlightened world where peace, joy, and bliss will reign. We would love to start our Spiritual Awareness Journey program today with our first speaker, Dr. J Prakash Agarwal. Dr. JPG is from Darjeeling in India. He has a bachelor's degree in science, a degree doctorate in alternative medicine, which includes Ayurveda, homeopathy, yoga, and naturopathy. He is the director of Hunt's Herbals Limited, a herbal medicine factory in Haridwar, India. Dr. JPG is an active motivational speaker. He travels regularly through India, Nepal, Bhutan, and other countries, conducting seminars and workshops on science and spirituality. He gives lectures in various colleges and universities, inspiring the youths to lead a balanced life with the help of physical science as well as metaphysical science. Dr. J Prakash emphasizes that the foundation of one's belief should be based on one's own direct practical experiences for the best and highest results in one's life. And now, without any delay, I present to you Dr. JPG.
My dear friends, just now we are having a program on science and spirituality. Actually, sometimes we think that they are contradictory to each other, but in my experience, they are complementary to each other. The word science is actually, we can call it physical science, and spirituality, we can call it metaphysical science. Because science has a limit, it can experiment what our brain and senses can feel and experience. What the instruments can, we can find through the instruments. But something beyond our brain, beyond our senses, beyond our instruments, there is something which science accepts as metaphysical entity, metaphysics. That metaphysical entity can be experienced through a science, and that we can call it metaphysical science. So for a perfect life, we all want perfection in life and a balanced life. For that, if you're walking on two legs, if one leg is weaker and the other is stronger, we'll be limping. We can't walk properly. But if both the legs are equally strong, we can walk, not only walking, but we can run, and very fast we can run if there is balance between the two legs. Similarly, actually in our life, there should be a balance of physical science and spiritual science or metaphysical science. Physical science deals with, let's take the human body. Physical science has found out about everything, about how our lungs work, how our heart is functioning, the nerves, functioning of the nerves, the kidney, the gallbladder, the liver, everything they have come to know. But there are some things in our life, in our body, which science has yet to understand completely. And for that, they have a different branch, a special branch, which they call it cognitive science. Cognitive science, in that we deal with three things, especially the brain, the mind, and the consciousness. And these three things are vital in our life. Suppose there is a company or a factory or a very big concern. There is a labor group and there is a management group. The working group is controlled by the management group. But if the management group is not perfect, is not a good one, the company will not be able to progress properly. So that's why always we see that the management group must be a perfect one, a talented one. Similarly, in this human life, all the organs are working organs, the senses, the part of the body. But what is the management part? The management part are the three things: the brain, the mind, and the consciousness. If we understand the function of these things properly, and if we can utilize them properly, we can make our life beautiful and blissful. Take the example of a car. Suppose there is a driver, but he doesn't know about all the parts, how to drive, how to use the steering, how to use the brake, the clutch, and everything. Able to drive properly. But the driver who knows the function of each and everything, and also he knows how to use their function properly, he can drive the car properly. Similarly, unless and until we understand and utilize the function of these three things, the brain, the mind, and consciousness, will not be able to enjoy this life, will not be able to lead a perfect life. And friends, what I am speaking is not any philosophy. In my life, I have experienced something, and that's only what I am sharing with you. Because before coming to spiritual science, I was an atheist, non-believer of God, nothing. I said it's everything just created by energy and motion. But slowly, when I came to know about this metaphysical science, it was completely not only beautiful, but fruitful for the whole life. So the three things, the brain, the mind, and consciousness, can properly be understood with the metaphysical science, the spiritual science. One more thing I would like to add. We think that spiritual science is different for different sects and different religions. But actually, it is not so. When we take the example, the formulas, the laws of physical science, it's all one and the same over the whole world. The languages may be different, the description system may be different, but the same density, mass, equations, laws, Charles' law, Boyle's law, Archimedes' principle, everything what we study in science in any place will be the same thing will study anywhere in the world. Similarly, spiritual science is one and the same for the whole humanity. The sects may be different, the beliefs may be different, but in reality, what is the actual spiritual science is one and the same for the whole humanity. And so we have to study spiritual science as a science, not as a belief, not as a theory. And once we come to know and realize it as a science, it's so beautiful. It beautifies our whole life and gives satisfaction and peace to our mind. So I was talking about the three things: the function of the brain, the function of the mind, and the function of the consciousness. Let's take the example of a computer. In the computer, there are three things: the hardware, the software, and the current passing through it. If the current doesn't pass, the computer will not work. So we need the current of electricity to pass through that, and then only the computer will work. Now, the hardware has to be in order for the computer to function, and the software has to be virusless. If there are viruses in the software, the computer will be not be working properly. So, for the computer to function properly, there should be a current, and there should be the hardware in proper order, and the software should be without any virus. In our human life also, consciousness is the current passing through this body. When the conscious leaves the body, this computer doesn't work, the brain computer. And in the brain computer, there are two things. One is the brain, the hardware, and mind, the software. Science has been able to understand the function of brain to some extent, not fully. It is yet to understand that how can we optimize the efficiency of the brain. Some neurologists say that we are using only 5 to 10% power of the brain. The rest power of the brain, out of 16 billion neurons in the cortex, we are hardly using 50 to 100 billion 50 to 100 crore neurons. Means suppose 5 to 10 to 15 billion neurons we are using out of 16 billion neurons. We are hardly using 1 or 2 billion neurons. And the rest is almost dormant. So how to use the total brain power is a mystery before physical science. And in that we know that there is the two parts of the brain, the cortex, the left and the right. And in that also the left part is functioning better than the right part. And that's why we are limping brain-wise also. Unless until the both parts of the brain function equally, there is proper synchronization of the two parts, even the function of brain is erratic. And that's what's happening in our life. We take decisions, sometimes our decisions are right, sometimes our decisions are wrong. Why? Because of the non-synchronization of the two parts. The right part is a special part of the brain, which as per in neurology, we say it's a intuitive and creative part of the brain. Whereas the left part is the logical, analytical part of the brain. What functions, what properties are in the left are not in the right part. So nowadays, the education system, our college and university education system, it activates the neuron of the left part, whereas the neurons of the right part are not much activated by the study that we have in our college and universities. So it's also a mystery, dilemma before science, that how can we activate the neurons of the right part, right hemisphere of our brain, of cortex. And it says that, as I said before, the physical science and spiritual science are complementary to each other. In the spiritual science, there is a formula, there is a process, really there is a process through which we can activate the neurons of the right hemisphere. And when through that process, through that special process, spiritual process, when we activate the right part of the brain and the left part is already active from our physical studies and analysis and all these things, when two parts work together, the function of our brain becomes optimal. We have an optimal efficiency of the brain. So even for the brain to function properly, both parts have to be equally strong, and that can be done only when, along with the physical science, we study and use spiritual science or metaphysical science in our life. Similarly is the mind. Actually, what I feel, we are yet to understand mind. What is mind? Some philosophers say that mind, what is mind? They say the thought that comes in the mind, comes in the brain is the mind. The thought process in the brain is the mind. But actually, it's not so. When the mind connects with the brain, thoughts arise. Mind is the activating medium. And mind is partly physical and partly metaphysical. So to understand the mind, actually, the function of the mind, to control the mind, to remove the viruses of the mind, we have to take the help of spiritual science. One thing I would like to add, some of my friends may not agree, mind does not have brain. Mind does not have brain. If you take any energy, whether it is fire energy, electrical energy, water energy, air energy, atomic energy, any of the energy, it doesn't have brain. We can utilize it for a creative work, we can utilize it for a destructive work. It depends upon us. But the energy itself doesn't know that it's good or it's bad. I'm doing something wrong for the society or I'm something doing beneficial for the society. The energy doesn't understand that. It's we understand that we are using it in a proper way or in a destructive way. Similarly, mind does not have brain. Mental energy is also brainless. It doesn't know what is good and what is bad. We can use this mental energy for a good habit or a bad habit. And once that habit is formed, Even if the brain says, no, it's wrong, we shouldn't do that, the mind compels us to do that. And these are the viruses that dominates the computer there. You know, if in the software there are viruses, the computer function of the computer is disturbed. And similarly, when there are viruses in our mind, the function of our brain computer is disturbed. And so now the question comes, how to remove the viruses of the mind when it doesn't have brain? Whatever we are speaking or listening or reading or studying, that is all going to our brain, not going to the mind, because mind does not have brain. If there is a virus in a computer, it is tell the virus, request the computer, the software, no, please you remove your virus. The computer will not understand what we are saying because it doesn't have that capacity. Similarly, mind is brainless. And so to clean the mind, there is a formula which we can discuss any day, that how to clean the mind when it doesn't have brain, how its function can be properly utilized, how it can be cleaned, and moreover, we control the mind. You know, if you want to tie an ant and we bring a thick rope of 1 inch diameter and we want to tie the ant, it's never possible. Because the ant is so minute, so small, it will go through it. We need a very, very fine thread to tie the ant. Mind is the smallest thing within our body. Even smaller, even minute than the brain. So when we try to control the mind through the brain, for a while we control it, then it runs away, it goes away. There is no break in science. I'm talking about physical science. There is no break in science to control the mind. Science has brought out brakes for everything, brake for the train, brake for the car, brake for the aeroplane, brake for the submarines, brake for everything. But up till now, scientists have not been able to put a brake to the unstable mind. Our mind vibrates in 4 frequencies. We call it delta, theta, alpha, and beta. And during awakened state, most of the time in beta state. While we are in dream state, it is called the alpha state. And when we have a deep sleep, it is called the theta state. And when we are in, in trance, in that only it becomes, attains the delta state, which is the most peaceful and blissful state. What we call enjoyment, what we call bliss, is level of concentration of mind. The more our mind becomes concentrated, we enjoy life. So, to understand the function of the mind, to control the mind, we have to learn, practice spiritual science. And similar is the consciousness, due to which we are alive. When the consciousness leaves the body, all the functions like when the electricity flow is not there, the whole function of the computer goes away. Similarly, the consciousness within us, due to which we speak the word I. And when the consciousness leaves us, we can't say I. So actually the power due to which we are saying I is the power of the consciousness. And why the consciousness is in this body? What it has a desire? All these things can only be understood through spiritual science. You know, I would like to mention a function of the mind. Our mind is never satisfied. It's always, whatever you give it, temporarily it is satisfied, permanently it is not satisfied. Actually, it is searching for infinity. And that's the desire of the consciousness. Conscious want to attain infinity. And we say in mathematics, at infinity plus minus anything is equal to. So to understand the function of the brain, the mind, and consciousness, I request and suggest to learn spiritual science, metaphysical science also, along with the physical science, and then we can understand, fully utilize the function of the brain, synchronize both parts of the brain, can make our brain super brain, as we say in a supercomputer. Many processors work together. Similarly, we have got two processors, the left and the right. If both hemispheres work in tandem, then our brain can become a super brain. And if we could control the mind, if the energy is in control, it is creative, it's beneficial. If the energy is not destructive. Similarly, if you could control this mental energy, there is a process in spiritual science through which it can permanently be controlled. And if you control the mind and understand the function of the consciousness, the life will be blissful, happy, peaceful. And that's what, when the both sciences work together, they are complementary to each other, we'll enjoy this life. So thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. JPG. We're very grateful for you imparting your words of wisdom and knowledge onto us all. I hope you've provoked some thoughts and questions for everyone listening today, and I hope we all take something from your talk away with us today. So thank you once again. We're very grateful for your kind words. Our second speaker of today is a very young lady, Miss Saisha Gupta. Saisha is a 19-year-old university student studying at the University of Amsterdam at the Amsterdam Science Park in the Netherlands. She is about to enter her second year of her undergraduate studies in a Bachelor's of Chemistry. She is currently majoring in physical and quantum chemistry and will be continuing with quantum computing next year. Saisha is also a second-degree brown belt in the martial art Shotokan, please correct me if I said that wrong, and enjoys baking, cooking, and swimming. She will be discussing the intertwined nature of science and spirituality. Thank you, Saisha.
Thank you, Janvi. Essentially, that is exactly what I wanted to discuss. Now, spirituality is the original and universal religion, is very ancient. All of the great scriptures of the world are nothing but the textbooks of the spiritual science. They describe it, they discuss it, and they urge each and every person to experience it for him or herself. However, the empirical or physical sciences are a relatively recent phenomenon, but it has completely transformed the thinking and the way of life of mankind, doing away with any superstitions and orthodox beliefs which led the human intellect for so long. And it freed us to work the miracles, making man the master of his own environment. First, science posed an apparent threat to organized religion. Indeed, it exposed all of the fallacies and inconsistencies of organized religion, but when compared and contrasted with spirituality, there is a different observation. From Western history, we learned that the development of the modern science, especially in Europe, we see that a lot of discoveries from the ancient times began to arise again. And it brought a change to human awareness in that region. All the blind faith that was predominant and being followed by everyone began to crumble, and no institution or organization could prove that these discoveries were invalid. With the result of this being that thinking people started to examine everything from a scientific angle. No longer were people willing to believe something because of a tradition or some church, for example, were saying that that was true. A new age of reason dawned in the Western world. And science presented itself as an alternative to understand the universe through the scientific method of investigating nature. It was based on observation, analyzing what you see, and understanding the relationship between parts of your environment, and eventually making a conclusion, trying to see how specific causes were behaving and what their effects were. There are a lot of things around us that show this cause and effect. For example, the law of gravity. When we lift up something, that is what we cause. And when we drop it, the effect is that it falls back down. When we take two magnets and put them together, we are causing them to close the distance between the two of them. And the effect is that they either come together or they fly apart. Another example is a very famous law, and it's Newton's law. It's how every action has an equal and opposite reaction. I'm sure everyone knows this and has learned this in school. Because of all these laws, we find and found new discoveries, which led to new inventions and creation, and it changed civilization. For example, before electricity, we would work during the day and maybe sometimes during the night with a candle on the table. But now, with electricity, it is possible to work all the time. It changed our life and it changed the way we were operating. That's where scientific discoveries and how prosperous they were in our world started to create doubt in people's minds in regards to religion or any belief. However, as science advanced and research began to probe deeper, scientists faced another problem, and they themselves began to change their opinions because they started to discuss a certain factor about nature, which they call energy, or sometimes power. In the 20th century, Einstein brought about a fundamental change in scientific thinking with his theory of relativity, which proved to us that what appears to be true to us in reality is not so. And what we think is the absolute truth is only relatively so. So we cannot see what the absolute truth of our environment is and what the absolute truth of nature is. For example, when we travel on a train, it seems to us that the trees and buildings are moving really quickly, but in reality, they're not moving very quickly. They're standing in the same way as it would look like to someone outside of the train. Everything in the world that appears to be a certain way actually has no absolute existence in our world. Scientists have also proven that the universe is expanding. As we all know, the Big Bang started the existence of the universe, where all of the matter in our universe was in this tiny point, and eventually it built up so much pressure, the Big Bang happened, and that made it grow. And the growth is still happening, despite how big the universe is. We cannot even imagine how big it is. And when something moves, there's some force that is making it move. So, it is well known that the universe is run by a force which we now know cannot be ever created, and it will never be destroyed. It will always exist. This principle, more formally, is known as the conservation of energy. And basically, what that means is that there is a certain fundamental force in our universe which existed before us and will exist long after human beings will, maybe in thousands of years, no longer be on this planet. So, despite discovering this, scientists have not been able to find what this energy is. What is running our universe? What is this, and why can't we touch it or see it or feel it or detect it? If you were to look at an ancient scripture, this energy would be described as one energy that was discovered many years ago by ancient civilizations in their own terms. Scientific research has discovered that the ultimate form of matter, of everything physical, is energy. And we can know that by Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared. And in its simplest way, it says that the only difference between pure energy and something physical is the speed of light, and that they're very easily interchangeable, that there's almost no difference between us, our fingers, our hands, our physical being, and pure energy. When matter, for example, is broken down into its subtlest and smallest form, the only thing that remains is this energy that we cannot see, that we cannot touch, regardless of what microscopes we make. And it's impossible to study it further. And that is, in fact, the main problem that is currently looming at the edges of all scientific discovery. Researchers are unable to find methods of pushing the boundaries of their understanding, on their understanding of themselves, their understandings of nature or their surroundings, because what they're trying to find has become so small that physical means of seeing or hearing or touching objects is no longer possible, because what they're trying to see is subatomic. As we all know, the atom is made of 3 parts: the electron, the proton, and the neutron. And those 3 parts are made of even smaller 3 parts, like subatomic particles, like mesons, leptons, for example. They're even smaller. In order to see these, we have made large machines, very large machines, and they're in Switzerland, for example, the Large Hadron Collider. However, after seeing these even smaller fundamental particles, as they're called, they have their own table. They're very special to us. We see that there's something else behind them that is giving them a type of existence. If something so small and that is almost massless can exist and moves at the speed of light at that small of a viewpoint, however, at our viewpoint, it is moving really slowly, we can touch it, and we're very heavy in comparison to that particle. How is it possible that something so small, that is basically energy, can have a physical existence? That is when the God particle was discovered. It's also known as the Higgs boson. That was also discovered in the Large Hadron Collider about 10 years ago, very recent. And basically what it says is that everywhere in the universe, every single corner, every edge is permeated by this field, the Higgs field. And it is the exact thing that converts the small fundamental pieces of energy to its physical manifestation. Now, we are able to make machinery that allows us to see the physical forms of energy. And we know that there's some kind of God presence almost in the God particle. And every single religion, at its core, it speaks of a spiritual experience, or rather the practical experience of spirituality, of God. We may be able to make machinery to see energy, but spirituality is the means to experience God. And for that, we are the machinery. You know, these days there are large machines that can take pictures of energy fields and auras, for example, that we see, and they're no different. Scientists know that the mind exists and that they know that consciousness exists, but they have no machinery to measure it. And due to the fact that at the heart of scientific discovery lies the empirical cycle, which demands proof. At the end, you need to show some proof and then publish it. You need to show sensible evidence of something to claim it. But because of that, we're hitting a wall. It is no longer possible to make such an experience, such a spiritual experience, tangible without becoming overly theoretical or using too much math. Research tries to chase the truth, but the truth no longer appeals to our 5 senses. some phenomenon cannot be seen, and they cannot be heard, and they cannot be communicated in any language, not even math. And some things can only be experienced, and specifically within ourselves. Now, it's very clear that the 20th century has exposed so many limitations that we're facing right now. Scientists are expecting that it's no longer possible that the only method of pursuing the truth of nature can give us an absolute knowledge. These limitations give us some serious suffering because we fail to decipher the mysteries of the universe, which remain basically the same. They're still as much of a riddle to us as it was to the primitive man hundreds of years ago. Even despite all of this progress we've made, we've only extracted more questions and more answers, which lead to more questions. It is logical that only a harmonious balance of the disciplines of science and spirituality together can bring an all-around expression of the human genius. So essentially, the 19th century, as a system of science, was a system of rational investigation, more specifically in Europe, when there was rediscovery of ancient principles and modernization of them. In that space, as per history, it stood against the classical thinking provided by Christianity. And as the age of reason began to take influence across the world, the religious influence declined. However, 2 world wars later, it was proven that science does not fulfill the man. After the discovery of science, it was seemed as if the golden age of human thinking was coming, that we will have all the answers to questions that we would provide in terms of ourselves or our surroundings, and innovation pursued. But the innovation can also have very bad consequences, such as bombs or weapons. And all these bombs and weapons came from very, very groundbreaking research. But even that left us very unfulfilled because that was used for fighting. It just increased our problems, and it increased the level of mystery we had towards the universe and its confusing dimensions and phenomenon. This basically demanded scientists to give their attention to a different way of finding the truth. Are we asking questions such as, what is our place in the universe? Are we just a little piece of dust in a large universe, or are we a small piece in a physical machine? Or are we just a puppet that laughs and exists and eventually dies as time goes on and on? These are all questions that we can continue asking, but it is important to bear in mind that when seeking answers to these questions, the answers cannot necessarily be found in the lab, which is why it's important to conjoin spirituality and the spiritual aspect of human existence to any and all scientific pursuit. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you, Spiritual Awareness Journey, for this platform. If there are any questions, please don't be hesitant to ask.
Thank you, Saisha. Thank you for sharing a lot of your knowledge and wisdom that you've obviously worked on throughout your studies. Coming from sort of scientific medical background myself, I've related quite well to both what yourself and Dr. JP have said today. And it's nice to get 2 different sort of opinions on it and two different viewpoints. Thank you very much for your time. And so now we will be traveling all the way to Kalimpong, a town situated in West Bengal in India, to delight in a musical presentation by Rahul Vishwakarma with his rendition of the song Let Go, Let God by singer Jack Cassidy. Thank you.
My fear got me struck down, got me knocked out by the hands of the enemy. Those lies had me held down till I found out that it's not my identity. I found my life and I let it down, and all my hope is in you now. My faith is in you, oh God. I'm learning to let go and let God show me how to be me. I'm learning to let go and let God show me how to be free. Yo, kisses, your burden is lying, my daily bread and my daily delight. I'm learning to let go and let God so I can be the real me. I'm giving over my heart for a new start, 'cause I've come to the end of me. I'm learning that in your love there is freedom, even for a wretch like me. I found my life when I let it down, and all my hope is in you now. My faith is in you, oh God. I'm learning to let go, let God show me how to be me. I'm learning to let go and let God so I can be the real me. Yo, kisses, your burden is lying, my daily bread and my daily delight. I'm learning to let go and let God so I can be the real me. I've been hurt and I've been burdened too long, too long. Fear is falling, chains are breaking so long, so long. I've been hurt and I've been burdened too long, too long. Fear is falling, chains are breaking so long, so long. Let go, I let go, let go, I let go, and let go, I let God, and let go, and let go. I'm learning to let go and let God show me how to be me. I'm learning to let go and let God show me how to be free. Yo, kisses, your burden is lying, my daily bread and my daily delight. I'm learning to let go and let God so I can be the real me.
Thank you to Rahul for this amazing song. I think it's such a talent to be able to sing and play an instrument. So we are very, very grateful for your talented singing. And I think if everyone caught the lyrics in that song, I think there is something to learn from there. It's very, very well written. So thank you very much, Rahul, for your wonderful, wonderful presentation. We would now like to introduce to you our guest speaker of the day, our special guest, Mahatma Dharani Bhaiji. Mahatma Dharani Bhaiji is a realized soul, an enlightened saint from Haridwar in India. She is a disciple of Sri Satpalji Maharaj, spiritual head of the Manav Dharam organization. She has successfully provided spiritual enlightenment for the past 2 decades in various parts of India, Australia, Canada, UK, Europe, Fiji, and presently in Mauritius. She is also a doctor in Ayurveda and keeps helping people spiritually and physically as well. Her mission is to uplift the soul of man by rendering spiritual discourses on the essence of all scriptures and teaching yoga and meditation to the aspirants. We feel very fortunate to be in the presence of Mahatma Dharani Bhaiji, who will expound on her professional profound spiritual understanding of this episode's topic, science and spirituality. Thank you, Mahatma Dharani Bhaiji.
One and all, and
Thank you, Janvi, for introduction.
thank you, Saisha and JPG. Thank you, Spiritual Awareness Journey platform, for giving me opportunity to sharing my view. An ancient Sanskrit saying is that Satyo Paramo Dharma. That means there is no religion higher than the truth. The center of the science and spirituality is to seek the truth and grasping the essential nature of reality. The area of search is in different forms or in different directions. Science is the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiments. Whereas spirituality is the study of paraphysical world which cannot be grasped by senses, mind and intellect. Science and spirituality both are related to man's quest to overcome ignorance and hence essential for human development and progress. Science is a field of corroborating facts collected through experiment, whereas spirituality is a practical science of consciousness, the empirical truth. In fact, spirituality and science are the two sides of coin. As Einstein gave formula of E is equal to mc square, science study the physical or mass realm of universe, and spirituality is a study of energy or non-physical realm. The entire universe is a combination of energy and insentient matter which we perceive the matter through our senses. Science says the fundamental block of matter is electron, proton and neutron. But spirituality gives us insight to experience that energy which makes electron to revolve in the orbit, which cannot be perceived by senses and intellect. Science gives us answers about how the things are being created, fundamental elements, structure and nature of the object. But spirituality gives us answer why the object is existing. Say for example, scientific knowledge gives us the anatomy of the human body, blood groups, bones, organs and so on. But what is the truth about man? What is the purpose of human life? What is his place in this universe? Spirituality has the answer of all these questions. Human is not only physical being, but there is something else in him which transcends physical limitation. Man is potentially divine, and behind the finite human being is the infinite soul. The human body is a microcosmic representation of the universe. In order to understand the whole, the universe in essence, have to study the part human body. Just as to know the property of seawater, we need to examine a drop of it. Modern science is still working hard to figure out what 95% of universe is made up of. Visible matter is only 5%. What constitutes the universe? 95% dark energy or subtle energy is unknown to the world of science. Where spirituality explains that man and the cosmos are interconnected by a pervasive sea of energy that manifests in all phenomena. This energy is beyond the time and space. It can be experienced within the heart of human as the eternal state of truth, consciousness and bliss. On realizing it, one experiences the oneness of creation. Science is about things which can be measured, and spirituality is about things which cannot be measured. Our body can be measured in the height, in weight and structure. But we have life force, we have feelings, we have emotions, cannot be measured. Science gives us logical, rational, empirical and replicable tools and technologies which we need to function well in life. Spirituality gives us love, compassion, generosity, sense of mutuality. We need these too. Scientists have proven that the universe is permeated by force which is never created nor destroyed. The law of conservation of energy. But what is this energy? Science have not yet been able to find out. Whereas in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna proclaimed that Nanam chindanti sastrani, nanam dahati pavaka, na chenam kledyantyaapo, na shoshyati marutaha. The Atman, the soul, never destroy, and no weapon can cut it, no wind can blow it, and fire cannot burn it. Natumam sakyase drashtum manenev swachakshusha divyam dadami te chakshu pashyame yogameshwaram. Krishna says, you can experience this soul with the help of third eye, as the two physical eyes has limited vision. The sage, great spiritual researcher, have experienced the absolute and ultimate energy, soul, within their inner laboratory through spiritual knowledge. They brought forward the knowledge and the nature of the energy to the world. The nature of the energy is truth, consciousness and bliss. Sat, Chit, Anand. Science says that atom has natural tendency to achieve inner state or stability. As human being is made of billions of atoms, also wish to achieve total stability or total satisfaction. That cannot be found in material world, which is limited and bound by time and space. A person can have total satisfaction, infinite happiness and peace in life only by connecting with the Sat Chit Anand energy, which is beyond time and space. Scientific research has revealed that the ultimate form of matter is energy. When matter is broken down into subtlest form, only energy remains. Science is unable to study that energy. Spirituality describes that energy as pervading God. One can experience that energy through spiritual knowledge. Spirituality could be called the complete science which throws the light of understanding onto all other scientific disciplines. Development in both the fields, science and spirituality, are vital for healthy, happy and balanced society. The journey of a human being is not only to expand its illusory personality of his mind in the external world, but to realize himself beyond the identity of mind and see the truth behind the formation of life within. Basically, at the heart of it, all religions are saying the same thing. We all come from the same source. The basic goal of spirituality then is to bring us back to source and reunite us with something we have forgotten about. Till today, that supreme energy is the mystery for the scientists who advance in so many researches in different faculties. Not only that, even in ancient time too, the supreme energy was a great mystery for such a great sage and scientist, Bharadwaj Rishi. Bharadwaj Rishi, who had introduced the science of aeronautics first time to the world. But when time to understand the mystery of supreme energy, he has to go to the spiritual master, sage Yajnavalkya, in the holy city of Prayag. Bharadwaj Rishi was a renowned scholar, he was an economist, he was a grammarian and also physician. He learned Ayurveda, the traditional Indian medical science, from Lord Indra. He authored the Ayurveda Samhita and he also authored Yantra Sarvaswam, Yantra Sarvasvam, also known as Vaimanik Shastra, that means science of aeronautics. And I would like to share some profound detail on the subject from his book. So, in this book, Rishi Bharadwaj has given the definition of flying machine in chapter 1, and then he has mentioned about the pilot and also about clothing and food for pilots. He mentioned about aerial route and also mentioned about metal and heat absorbing metal. He also talked about mirrors and lens. He has mentioned about the variety of aeroplanes, and on these varieties one of them is Tripur, and this Tripur plane has 3 enclosures, and this Tripur plane naturally can travel on land, on the water, under the water and in the sky by alternation of its structure. And one more thing, and this is very special, and description and method of manufacturing aircraft which will enable pilot not only to spot enemy aircraft but also to hear what enemy pilots in their planes were speaking. What a great scientist and a scholar Rishi Bharadwaj was in his time. Modern science is far behind in this knowledge. But when time to understand the mystery of supreme energy, he has to go to the spiritual master, the spiritual scientist. Bharadwaj Rishi was living in the holy city of Prayag. In the month of Magh, and that is roughly we can say in January and February, when the sun enters Capricorn, demigods and crowd of men visit this holy place to bath in the triple water of river Ganga, Jamuna and Saraswati. They bath every day while the sun remains in Capricorn. When month is over, they return to their respective places. On one such occasion, after all the holy men had left, Bharadwaj Rishi tried to detain Yajnavalkya. He placed him on a seat of honor and said, "I am troubled by a grave doubt. I am afraid and ashamed to express my doubt. But if I don't, I will be missing a great opportunity." And what his doubt was? He said, "Please tell me all about Ram in detail." Then Yajnavalkya Rishi explained about Ram in detail. What he said? He said, Ram is the omnipresent Lord of the creation. Ram is the Supreme Spirit. Ram is the divine light itself. Ram is truth, consciousness and bliss. Ram is the energy. So, Bharadwaj Rishi, the scientist, wanted to know about energy. Then Yajnavalkya Rishi initiated him in spirituality, and Bharadwaj Rishi realized that supreme energy within through spiritual knowledge. So, science and spirituality make a great partnership. If those engaged in science spend some time in meditation, they will get the answers. Science will bring comfort in our life, and spirituality will bring total satisfaction and peace in our life. And I would like to conclude with this story. The story of lame person and a blind man. How they cooperated to complete a journey. The blind man carried the lame man who served as a pair of his eyes. So, taking his lame companion on his back, they travelled on with safety and pleasure. The very act of understanding is a celebration of joining, merging, even on a very modest scale with the magnificence of the cosmos. Science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of spirituality. Thank you for listening.
We are humbly grateful to Mahatma Dharani Baiji for sharing her words of wisdom with us. Thank you so much. So you said in your talk, what is the purpose of human life? And you then went on to help us to understand the use of science and spirituality in finding this out. We are here to connect with this high form of energy, the Satchit Anand energy, which is beyond time and space. The ultimate form of matter is energy, and one can experience this energy through spirituality, which you very kindly and very lovingly explained, that we also need a spiritual master for this. So thank you once again, Mahatma Dharani Baiji, for your eternally blissful words, and I hope each and every one of you has taken something away from this talk, and we will endeavour to learn more and more. Thank you. I wish to thank each one of you for your presence here on our Spiritual Talk platform today. We hope today's episode has inspired you, even though cut short slightly, to ponder deeper on the origin, purpose, and goal of each of us as humans, with the determination to seek, ask, and knock to expand in divine consciousness and essence. Please feel free to drop us a note with your comments, and if you have any questions or wish to contact any of our speakers, please email us at spiritualawarenessjourney@gmail.com. The email address will be put in the chat box below, so please feel free to send us any questions, and we will endeavour to address these in our next episode of the Spiritual Awareness Journey programme, which will be held on the 10th of July, where the topic will be the need of a living master. We wish you a wonderful week ahead. We're very grateful for all of your presence here today and joining us in this program. Thank you to each one of our speakers for their extremely inspiring words and sharing their knowledge with us. Thank you to our sponsor, the Manav Dharam YouTube channel, and a big thank you to you all. I am your host, Janvi Nanda, and from all of us here on the Spiritual Awareness Journey, best wishes for a healthy and peaceful journey ahead. We will see you all soon.